Brandon Cooks wasn't even supposed to be in that role. Injuries forced him into the spotlight, and then came a moment fans can't stop replaying. A debatable interception that shifted overtime momentum for good. But that's not what made the headlines. It was Josh Allen, tears in his eyes, voice cracking, telling the world he failed his team. This wasn't leadership theater.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
It was a player carrying years of near misses and public doubt. And even as controversy swirled around the officiating and the receiver core broke down, Allen didn't deflect. He owned the moment. Again. Yet ownership isn't the same as transformation. Allen's dual-threat brilliance once defined hope in Buffalo. Now it's part of a painful pattern. Games that slip away, errors that magnify, and emotional moments that stir debate but don't move the needle. The 0-7 overtime stat isn't just a number, it's a narrative. And unless something shifts fast, in coaching, strategy, or Allen himself, the story will repeat. The clock is ticking louder than ever on a team that's still searching for the final piece, and maybe running out of time to find it. There was a moment just before the interview ended where Josh Allen stood there, silent, heavy, emotionally drained. He looked up, swallowed hard, and then walked off. No excuses. No finger-pointing. No blaming the refs, the game plan, or the moment. Just a quarterback absorbing every ounce of disappointment from another season that slipped away, and quietly accepting all of it as his own. And the second that clip hit social media, it went nuclear. Because it didn't just reflect a loss. It exposed something deeper. A pattern. A burden. And a quarterback who's clearly feeling the crushing weight of carrying a team that keeps falling short, again and again, and now in ways that are starting to feel less like bad luck and more like fate. Let's not get it twisted. This was a brutal, avoidable loss. The kind that'll haunt film rooms, headlines, and fan forums for the entire offseason. The Bills didn't just lose in overtime, they lost despite clawing back from 5 turnovers, with Allen keeping them afloat the entire way, only for everything to collapse in the final moments. That's the entire problem with this team. They're never out of the game, but they're also never fully in control of it. And once again that showed up on the scoreboard. The Broncos walked it off 33-30. The officiating was a mess, from blown pass interference calls to that murky interception involving Brandon Cooks that still doesn't have a clear consensus. Fans were livid. Analysts questioned whether the league should allow such high-stakes games to hinge on such subjective calls. But Allen? He took the high road. Said he'd watched the tape. Said he had to be better. And that's what makes this so heartbreaking. Because even in his most vulnerable moment, he still shouldered the blame. Even when officiating played a role. Even when injuries decimated his receiving core. Even when Brandon Cooks, a late-season pickup with limited chemistry, was thrown into the fire as a key target in overtime. Even when he wasn't the only one responsible, Allen said the words no franchise QB ever wants to say, "I let my teammates down." He wasn't just emotional. He was wrecked. But the real gut punch came after. When asked how the team responded to his apology, a teammate responded coldly, "He let us down." No spin. No context. Just a dagger to the heart of a team that's already cracking. And that quote changed everything. It signaled that this wasn't just a team that lost, it's a team that's unraveling. Slowly. Quietly. Publicly. The trust, the chemistry, the buy-in, it's not what it once was. Because in the NFL you don't get infinite chances. You get windows. And when the losses keep piling up, fingers start pointing. Even at the guy who's been your best chance at relevance in 20 years. Let's talk about the game itself. Allen was electric in stretches. He threw for over 250 yards, ran for another 66, and kept the Bills alive despite turnover after turnover. 2 fumbles. 2 picks. And another turnover elsewhere. That alone should have ended it by halftime. But Allen kept pushing. Making elite throws under pressure. Scrambling. Sacrificing his body for first downs. But then, like always, it unraveled. The ill-advised scramble before halftime? Strip sack. Points off the board. The overthrow to Dalton Kincaid on a potential touchdown? Just high enough to take 6 points off the board. Missed chances. Critical moments. The kind of plays you can't afford to miss in playoff football, where games are decided by inches, not talent. And this has been the consistent issue with Allen. Not the highlights but the timing of the lowlights. He's never not been elite. But his mistakes come when they matter most. And that's why the 0-7 record in overtime games can't be ignored anymore. That's not a fluke. That's a problem. A recurring one. One that should have the coaching staff, the front office, and the quarterback himself asking real questions this offseason. Because talent isn't the problem. Execution is. Especially late. Especially when the pressure spikes. It doesn't help that the receiving core was a mess. Injuries forced Buffalo to rely on late-season additions and patchwork solutions. Brandon Cooks was brought in for help, but he was clearly out of sync. And when your top weapons are out, your timing's off, and your QB is trying to play hero ball, mistakes are inevitable. But this team wasn't built for next man up anymore. It was built for right now. And that's the issue. Buffalo has been on the cusp for years. Always close. Always dangerous. Always in the mix. But never the last team standing. And as the rest of the AFC continues to reload, that identity, almost great, is starting to feel like a curse. Allen has now lost 6 playoff games in 7 appearances. And that record will follow him until he changes it. Because that's how this league works. You don't get judged by your talent, you get judged by your results. And no matter how much Allen gives, the results aren't getting better. You start to wonder how long he can keep giving this much. And how long his teammates will accept a leadership style that doesn't come with wins to back it up. Because let's be honest, that teammate quote doesn't happen in a healthy locker room. It's not normal. And it's not going away. That's the part no one wants to say aloud. That this might be the beginning of something worse. Not just another playoff loss, but the slow unraveling of a core that never got it done. The shift from contender to cautionary tale. You look at Mahomes, Burrow, Lamar, quarterbacks with different situations, different outcomes, but the common thread? They're closing games. Winning big. Bringing home results. Allen? Still searching. And it's not for lack of trying. That's the worst part. It's because he's trying so hard. He's playing harder, heavier, and more desperate with every postseason. And now you can see the weight in his face. The cracks in his confidence. The emotional toll of knowing he could win it all but hasn't. And unless the Bills make serious changes this offseason, it's only going to get worse. This can't be about tweaks. It has to be a reset in mindset. Smarter coaching. Sharper execution. Roster depth that isn't one injury away from a crisis. And a strategy that doesn't force Allen to be a one-man offense in every critical moment. Because this is not sustainable. For him. For the team. For the fan base. And if the locker room is already splintering, that window everyone keeps talking about? It's not just closing. It might already be shut. Let us know how you're feeling after that one. Was Josh Allen unfairly hung out to dry, or is the criticism finally catching up to him? Can this team fix its deeper problems before it's too late? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Hit like if you've watched this story unfold too many times. Share this with someone still stuck on that post-game interview. And subscribe for more of the biggest meltdowns and make-or-break moments in sports. Because Buffalo doesn't just have a football problem. They've got a future problem. And it's arriving faster than anyone expected. Because now the narrative is no longer about potential. It's about results. Or the lack of them. Josh Allen is no longer the up-and-coming MVP candidate with nothing but upside. He's now a franchise quarterback 6 years deep into his career with a losing playoff record, no Super Bowl appearances, and a locker room that, judging by that quote, is starting to fracture under the weight of it all. He let us down. That wasn't just a soundbite. That was a shift. The kind of statement that pulls back the curtain and reveals what's been brewing under the surface. Maybe it's frustration. Maybe it's resentment. But what it clearly isn't, is support. And that matters. Because quarterbacks don't win games on their own. But they do carry the culture of a team. And when that culture starts to splinter, when your franchise star cries at the podium and gets a cold shrug in return, that's not just a tough loss. That's rot. And Buffalo has been dancing on the edge of that rot for a while now. Let's stop pretending this was just about officiating or a couple of unlucky bounces. Yes, the refs were bad. The missed calls were egregious. The Brandon Cooks interception was a joke. But none of that is new. Every playoff team deals with questionable flags. The teams that win find a way to overcome it. The Bills? They fold. And it always feels like it happens the same way. Allen plays out of his mind, makes enough plays to keep them in it, but the cracks start to show. A forced throw. A risky scramble. A misread. Then a turnover. Then a breakdown. Then it's overtime. Then it's over. And that 0-7 overtime record just keeps getting louder. At what point does that become a reflection of something deeper? Bad luck doesn't strike 7 times in a row. That's not a coin toss issue. That's a leadership issue. A composure issue. A coaching issue. It's the kind of stat that tells you everything you need to know about where this team is when the pressure hits its peak. And the answer? Not ready. Not focused. Not clean. Not composed. Not built to finish. And now it's not just the fans who are noticing. It's the players. That locker room response told us that much. So now the question becomes, what does Buffalo do with all this? Because they can't run it back like this. Not again. The injuries exposed the roster's fragility. The reliance on short-term band-aids like Brandon Cooks, while necessary, highlights a long-term problem. You can't patch holes at the end of the season and expect playoff chemistry. It doesn't work. And that interception? That's what it looks like when your WR1 is a guy who hasn't been there long enough to build trust. So do they retool the roster? Invest in durable, reliable receivers? Fix the offensive line? Add actual depth? Or do they look even higher up the ladder? Because coaching has been a topic for years now. The Bills have made a name for themselves as regular season bullies who fold in the postseason. That's not a talent issue. That's preparation, game management, the ability to handle the moment. And the moment keeps swallowing this team whole. No team with Josh Allen at quarterback should be this bad in overtime. No team with this level of firepower should be collapsing in the red zone. No quarterback with this much raw ability should be fumbling away drives before halftime in do-or-die playoff games. But it keeps happening. And now the emotional toll is impossible to ignore. Allen's post-game wasn't just emotional, it was haunted. He looked like a man who's run out of ways to process another collapse. He didn't try to justify it. He didn't throw anyone else under the bus. He just said what he felt. I let my teammates down. He took it all on himself. Again. But that kind of emotional weight is dangerous. Because when you're always the one to blame, when you're always the one who has to answer for the loss, and when the people around you start quietly turning on you, that's a recipe for burnout. Fast. And the irony? Allen still is the reason the Bills are even in these games. His play kept them alive. His effort pushed them to overtime. His guts kept the Broncos defense guessing. He's still one of the most physically dominant quarterbacks in the league. But dominance without discipline leads to disaster. And that's where Allen finds himself now. Caught between being the guy who can do it all and the guy who has to do it all. And as it turns out, those are two very different things. One is empowering. The other is draining. And you saw it drain him on that podium. Which brings us back to the bigger picture. Buffalo's in a dangerous spot. Because they're not bad. They're not even underachieving in the regular season. But when the games matter most, when it's time to be great, they're just not. And that's worse. Because irrelevance is easy to fix. But almost great? That's purgatory. It lulls you into thinking you're just one play away, one bounce away, one offseason away from a ring. But the truth is, when a team keeps losing the same way year after year, it's not the circumstances. It's the structure. So what happens next? Does the front office make drastic moves? Does the coaching staff get reshuffled? Does someone finally tell Josh Allen to stop carrying the weight of the franchise like a personal cross? Or does this team just run it back next year, hoping the ball finally bounces their way in overtime? Because hoping isn't a strategy. And right now, that's all Buffalo's got. And the window? It's still technically open. But you can feel the cold air rushing in. Mahomes is still Mahomes. Lamar just had a breakout season. Burrow will return. The AFC is stacked with quarterbacks who are getting better, mentally sharper, situationally sound, more composed. And Allen? He's still spectacular. Still a fighter. Still everything you want in a franchise QB. But if that raw talent doesn't evolve, if the Bills don't evolve around him, it's going to be the same story again next year. An emotional press conference. A game they should have won. A long off-season of questions. And a team that once looked like it was ready to rule the AFC, left sitting in the shadows of those who actually figured out how to win. The thing is, everyone thought this era was going to be different. Buffalo finally had the guy. Not a game manager. Not a flash in the pan. A true franchise quarterback with MVP caliber upside, unmatched arm strength, mobility, leadership, toughness. The full package. Josh Allen was supposed to be the answer to decades of quarterback purgatory. The one who could turn heartbreak into hardware. And for a while it looked like that's exactly what was happening. From the 2020 breakout to the jaw-dropping duel with Mahomes in that 13 seconds game, Allen felt like a quarterback built for big moments. Built for January. Built to win. But fast forward to now, and suddenly those big moments keep turning into caution signs. Allen's playoff numbers still hold up. He's not folding statistically. He's producing. But what's becoming impossible to ignore is when the mistakes come. Not in garbage time. Not in blowouts. in the clutch, in the red zone, with the lead, in overtime. And that's where the legacy starts to shift. Because being almost unstoppable is no longer enough. Not when Mahomes is out here winning titles. Not when Lamar Jackson just took another leap. Not when younger QBs are entering the league and immediately winning playoff games that Buffalo can't seem to close. Being elite doesn't matter if you can't finish. And now the losses have names. Kansas City, Cincinnati, now Denver. And they're not just losses, they're types of losses. Clock disasters, turnover meltdowns, overtime implosions. Always close, always winnable, always a few plays short. And now the 0-7 overtime record is a dark cloud that no longer follows Allen. It defines him. That's a painful sentence to say out loud, especially for a guy who's done everything you want from a leader. He plays through injuries. He shows up in big games. He answers every question. He never blames anyone but himself. And that's the problem. Because this isn't just about Josh Allen making mistakes. It's about how alone he is when he makes them. The Bills don't play like a team built to win in layers. They play like a team hoping their quarterback can bail them out of everything. If he has a flawless game, they win. If he's human, they lose. There's no margin for error. No safety net. No ability to win ugly. Just chaos. And what's worse, the accountability isn't shared evenly anymore. Allen takes the blame publicly. And now we're seeing signs that privately, it's being handed to him too. The "he let us down" quote didn't just sting because of what it said, it stung because it confirmed what many suspected. That maybe this team doesn't fully trust its quarterback in big moments anymore. Or worse, that frustration has turned into resentment. That's how locker rooms break. And when a quarterback starts to feel like the scapegoat instead of the leader, those relationships don't just strain, they dissolve. And look, no one's saying Allen is above criticism. The strip sack before halftime? Awful. He had options. He had time. And instead of checking down or throwing it away, he did what he always does, tried to be Superman. And it cost them. Same thing with the missed touchdown to Kincaid. That's a throw he has to make. Not because he's not allowed to miss, but because it's the playoffs. Because that's the moment that separates the good from the great. And Allen missed it. But missing a few throws, making a few errors, those things shouldn't erase everything he does right. And yet, in Buffalo's current structure, they do. Because Allen's leash is the shortest of all. His margin for error is non-existent. And the second something goes wrong, the entire game plan collapses. It's a system problem. A coaching problem. A roster problem. And if the Bills don't recognize that now, this thing is going to spiral. Let's talk about the receiving core. Stefon Diggs has clearly grown more frustrated by the season. The chemistry that once lit up the league feels dimmer now. The body language isn't the same. The production is inconsistent. And beyond Diggs? It's patchwork. Injuries took out key targets, forcing Buffalo to lean on guys like Brandon Cooks late in the season. Players who hadn't had nearly enough time to develop trust or rhythm with Allen. That interception in overtime? Maybe it's on Allen. Maybe it's on the route. Maybe it's on both. But it doesn't happen to a team with weapons who actually know each other. That's not about blame, it's about construction. You cannot expect Allen to elevate a group of half-healthy, part-time, plug-and-play targets to postseason dominance. That's not sustainable. That's desperation. And that desperation bleeds into everything, into the play calling, into the decisions, into the sideline energy. And suddenly, every snap feels like a make-or-break moment. That's how you lose playoff games. So what's the solution? It's not a total teardown. This isn't a rebuild. It's a realignment. Start with the coaching staff. There needs to be serious evaluation, not just of play design but of situational management. Because these late-game failures? They're not random. They're patterns. And they're coaching-related. Then look at the roster. It's time to stop plugging holes. Buffalo needs to prioritize durability and chemistry over splashy midseason pickups. Allen needs weapons he can trust, not guys learning the playbook on the flight to the stadium. And most importantly, reset the internal culture. That quote from the locker room wasn't just a moment of frustration. It was a red flag. If this team is going to move forward, they need to start holding everyone accountable, coaches, players, leaders, not just the quarterback. Allen can't keep shouldering the emotional weight of this franchise alone. No one can. He deserves better. Not because he's perfect, but because he's real, vulnerable, loyal, all in. He is the Buffalo Bills. And if they don't protect him, physically and mentally, this story is going to keep repeating. And we're all going to be watching the same post-game interview next year. And the clock's ticking louder than ever. This isn't about whether Josh Allen is still good. Yes. It's never been about talent. The league knows it. The fans know it. The defenses trying to stop him definitely know it. But we're past the stage where talent is enough. In the NFL, being great is just the starting point. To win in January, to survive in January, you need control. Composure. A plan that doesn't rely on heroics every single week. Buffalo doesn't have that. And deep down they know it. That's what made Allen's post-game moments so gutting. You could see it. This wasn't a guy sulking because of a bad game. It was a guy breaking under the pressure of carrying an entire organization and still coming up short. And he did what he always does. He put it on himself. Publicly. Emotionally. Completely. And then came that cold response from the locker room. That's the part people can't let go. Because it confirmed that whatever unity this team once had is fading. Teammates don't always have to defend their quarterback in the media, but when he's the guy bleeding for the team and apologizing for a loss that wasn't entirely on him, that's not the moment to distance yourself. So now Buffalo enters an off-season unlike any they've faced under this regime. The vibes have shifted. The emotional investment is starting to feel like emotional exhaustion. Fans aren't just disappointed, they're drained. The hope isn't as loud. The belief isn't as blind. They've seen this movie too many times. That's why the response can't be passive. This team doesn't need to tweak. They need to decide. What kind of team are they trying to be? Do they finally surround Allen with a full supporting cast? Do they hold the coaching staff accountable for these repeated breakdowns? Do they confront the internal dynamics that allowed a locker room leader to be left hanging in front of the world? Because if they don't, this won't just be a team with playoff problems, it'll be a team that wasted the best years of a generational quarterback. And that's the legacy no one wants. Let us know how you're processing all of this. Are you still riding with Allen? Or has something shifted for you after this latest collapse? Comment your thoughts. Like if you're tired of heartbreak being part of the game plan. Share with someone still rewatching the final drive in disbelief. And subscribe for more drama-soaked breakdowns from the heart of sports chaos. Because Buffalo doesn't need another comeback. They need a reckoning.